The Twins were shut down by yet another nondescript starting pitcher, moving the team to 2-2 on the season with the final game of the series. With the Brewers coming up, then the Twins head home to open the home schedule with the Guardians. We'll have all that in this episode. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And while you're doing that, head on over to @AnswerDaveBrown and follow our friend Dave. Dave, what's up tonight?
How many times am I supposed to unfollow you, Brandon? This is just, it's getting out of hand.
Well, if I do it an even number of times, you should still be following me. So I'm trying to keep on that track. But thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. We like to encourage you to be active in the comments on YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hi, we're waving at you and all that good stuff.
I just assume everybody can see us even when they're just listening because they have good imaginations.
Right. So we have to remember that they're not, though, so that we can set up the audio for the video that you have later in the show. So it's kind of the art that Corey Provis is learning right now, where you have to let the moment breathe a little more on TV because they can see what's happening. So we'll learn as we go. Should be a lot of fun. By the way, you can catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Twins. Up next for the Twins, it's Chris Paddack making his first start in nearly 700 days, taking on Joe Ross of the Brewers. It'll be on Wednesday with the first pitch scheduled for 12:10 p.m. Central at American Family Field. So again, just go on the SXM app, search Twins. You can find Chris and you can find Danny. Dave?
That's even long. 700 days, that's even longer than that whole Byron Buxton hasn't played center field in 534 days or whatever it was. That's a long time.
696 days since Chris Paddack last started. It was May 8th, 2022. Yeah, must
almost
be.
My birthday.
What's that?
That's almost my birthday.
Hey, well, quite a present, Paddack getting back out on the bump. Let's talk about Louis Varland first, though, because if you followed the tweets during the game, first of all, why? But second of all,
Louis should not be tweeting during the game, Brandon.
Exactly. No, I think that's a good point. I think that's well taken. I did have a Twins player unfollow me during a game one time, which is kind of funny. He was in the minor leagues, and actually he follows me now. So we patched up, and he actually pitched in the big leagues for a little while. I'm not gonna name names, but he was drafted.
Give me all kinds of clues here, but okay.
Well, he was drafted while I was covering the team. Anyway, Louis Varland, the velo popping hit 98. In fact, I said I call him Grandma Moses because he's painting at 98, but he had a called third strike early on, 98 miles an hour, hitting 95, 96, 97. The homer, obviously not great, but Christian Yelich is starting to look like the old Christian Yelich. In general, I have a hard time being too upset with how Louis pitched today.
Well, it's sort of like what happened the other day with, it's already slipped my mind. It's so, it was one bad game. So, that's a kind of a couple in a row for the starting pitchers. Yep. It wasn't what you want. It was not a good economy of pitches for Louis. He did have a funny quote. He did one thing that he liked. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I can't. Oh, yeah, there's. My new slider curveball thing had some swing and misses, so that's good. And I just love the sometimes we get very technical with our terminology, but Louis is calling it a slider curveball thing. So I want that to be a T-shirt of some kind. So somebody out there get on that.
Well, they had bullpen T-shirts, or at least for like the three guys who lived together. It was Louis Varland, Brent Hedrick, and I think Matt Cantorino, and they were all wearing each other's T-shirts in think it was one of the episodes of their web series, but
The Diamond.
the Diamond, yeah.
Yeah.
Slipped my mind for a second. But no, I thought the pieces were there for Louis to have a fairly good day. And I know Twins fans are like, oh, 3-0 hole early, but the bullpen did the trick. And honestly, Varland got better. I thought, well, maybe not as the day went on, but it just appeared that he was a little more like in command. It wasn't going to snowball on him like it did for Bailey Ober the day before.
Bailey Ober, that was the guy. I was thinking,
days.
who started that game? And it was just, it wasn't like that. It wasn't quite as much of a wreck as that. But Rocco said the fourth inning was good for Louis, and maybe that's when the slider curveball thing was popping for him. So it's not a great start, but it is only one start, and we'll see what he can do next time.
Yeah, I wonder if that slider curveball thing is a slurve, but I don't know.
Is it? I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like it is, but
we'll see
that's not a sweeper.
We'll see what Pitch Effects has to say tomorrow. We'll take a look at it. But and we'll come back to more in-game stuff. But midway through the game, my beautiful boy Byron Buxton nearly got maimed by a bratwurst. And if that sounds like a really good edition of Mad Libs like we used to play as kids, it's because it pretty much is. But the camera caught it. And what's funny is he's actually a pitchman or spokesman for Sheboygan. Sheboygan, I believe, is actually Wisconsin, or at least a city in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. But Johnsonville was
Wisconsin's one state over.
Yeah,
Sheboygan is a city in Wisconsin. Yes. So Buxton pitches bratwurst.
He pitches those for the Twins radio network, and so there was almost some Johnsonville on Sheboygan violence there. You had pulled
East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah, not exactly like Tupac and those guys, but similar vein, I would say.
Yeah.
You did pull a quote though. Was it him and Ryan Jeffers?
It was him and Jeffers doing some good back and forth. Dan Hayes was there to record it. So Buxton
how do you want to share this? Do you want to play Buxton and I will play Jeffers? I think that would be kind of fun.
We're on the same page, man. I'll play Buxton and you be Jeffers.
Okay.
You ready?
So I think the first line is Buxton. It just doesn't say it that way.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Sheboygan bratwurst. Somebody. Who told me that? Jeffers, was that you?
Yeah, we said Buck almost got bratwursted.
Yeah, he told me that, and I was like, they're competing with Sheboygan, huh? It was fun.
I think it would have been great if he got run over by the bratwurst. It would have been a way better story.
Sheboygan would have had a good one.
As long as he's okay. I mean, the bratwurst was okay.
The bratwurst? What about me? That was a train collision because if I took one out, I'm taking at least two more.
That's a good point. It's a domino effect.
Oh, those guys can easily topple. Do you remember Randall Simon hitting the one sausage with the bat that one time? This is like 20 years ago now.
Like 2002 or 3, I think.
Apparently you do. I wrote a column about that when I wrote for a newspaper. Imagine they had such things in those days. And it was very well received. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I can see Simon tapping it. I think Mandy, I think her name was. There was a woman inside named Mandy, and she went flying.
Was he with the Pirates at that time?
He was a pirate, yeah. So it was like against the law kind of thing to do.
Yeah, he had some weird stuff, Randall Simon, in his career, because I think he had someone call him something pretty nasty at one point too.
Yeah, he did. So, we're not going to say it though.
No, we're very well behaved here. Yeah, otherwise, Jacob Junis shutting him down. I mean, again, I don't want to be disrespectful to
Jacob Junis. Oh my, yeah. Well, you saw what Jacob Junis's numbers were against the Twins before the game, and they beat him mercilessly. Of course, a lot of it maybe happened years ago and isn't relevant anymore. But he did not have good numbers against the Twins, but these things, I guess, tend to even out over time, and it started today.
Well, and it looked as though the scouting report said, hey, jump on his first pitch. And he, being a guy who's been around the block or time or two, seemed to kind of capitalize on their over-aggressiveness. He only threw 8 of 16 first pitch strikes but it seemed as though he attacked when he needed to attack. He backed off when he needed to back off. And, both starters went 4 innings, but it was a pretty different day. But by Junis just keeping the Twins in the yard, no homers for the Twins on the day. In general, though, I mean, when I saw Junis and Joe Ross on the schedule, I was thinking, well, the Twins should have a chance here. But this offense, man, they're in dire straits. I mean, as much as you can 4 games in after a tough spring training.
Yeah, well, that's the walk of life. Sometimes you get it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Junis, you just can't fool those old Royals, and he's got some Giants training as well. So he was. It didn't really happen against the Twins in the past, but I've seen him pitch well before. This wasn't the absolute first time. So, and it seemed like the Brewers, they had a couple of defensive lapses that kind of put the Twins in position to maybe get back in the game and take it over. But it seemed like I made a comment during the game that the Twins could have put like 4 guys on base at once and still would have figured out how not to score. It was one of those days where it was just they had all kinds of things go their way to set up, an entire run when it could have been, they're 1 hit away from turning the game on its head, and it just wasn't happening today. The offense was not in a good way. So maybe you think against Joe Ross, it's another day game. So don't let the Milwaukee nightlife, get too crazy on you. But they could come back tomorrow, and it would be nice for them to go above 500 again.
Yeah, it would. There was one game within the game play that I wanted to talk about that we'll come back to in our next segment after we give some love to PrizePicks. We also have a clip that you got at the K from Derek Falvey. So we still got plenty of good content coming your way here before we ship up and shape out, or shape up and ship out, whatever you want to say. Okay. But first, a word from PrizePicks. PrizePicks is North America, that is, largest daily fantasy sports platform. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. You're not facing some of those ringers who are entering 80 lineups or using means that are much more advanced than yours. It's just you versus the numbers. You pick more than, you pick less than on 2 to 6 player stat categories and projections, and you watch your winnings roll in. It's got a fun new feature called Demons and Goblins. So if you want to play a little more risky and a little more loose with it, you can do demon picks. They're in red, and they have accelerators. 100 times your money is the height of it. So if you want to bet 10 to win 1,000, that's your game right there. It's risky, it's tough, but the payoffs can be really big. Now, if you're more cautious, you can always use a goblin pick. It's marked in green because it keeps you in the green and allows you to land consistent victories. The payout is less, but your chances of keeping your winning streak going are much higher. Now, if you're into the NBA, you can pick more than or less than on everything from 3-pointers to turnovers. And for baseball, you can pick more than or less than on pitcher strikeouts, first inning runs, you name it, they've got it. Download the app today and enter code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's the code LOCKEDONMLB. It's all one word, it's all lowercase, and you can make sure to get that first deposit match up to $100. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, Dave, we are coming down the stretch here. Not the stretch. We're coming into the part. Yeah. In the 7th inning, Elvis had not yet left the building, was pitching for the Brewers, walked Carlos Correa, and then Hobie Milner came in, walked Manuel Margot. Santana grounds out. That was the ball that Willie Adames made a meal out of, and it allowed the Twins to have a couple runners in scoring position. Now, Willie Castro hits a nubber to
in front of the plate.
Yeah, Contreras goes to pick it up, bobbles it, and reaches on an error. What I liked about that and the play that really, to me, was the game within the game was how Carlos Correa read that from third base. And, some credit to Manuel Margot for not running him off the base, because at that point, then the bases are loaded. Christian Vasquez comes up, hits a sac fly, and you're within a run. And then I still wasn't really sure why Peguero faced Kyle Farmer when they seemed to have who did they have up and running or warming? Was it Piamps? I think I thought that would have made so much sense for them to go get Piamps to face Farmer. It worked out, but that to me was just kind of a strange move by first-year manager Pat Murphy. But again, I really liked how Correa watched what Contreras was doing and stayed put when it would have been easy to either go full bore or get caught in no man's land. And then Margot on the back end of that, not running him off. Both very, very good veteran moves, because when the game's tight like that and the ball's in play, your tendency is to want to go. And I just thought both of those veteran guys did a nice job letting that play happen.
Well, I don't think anybody is going to outsmart Carlos Correa
Nope.
on a baseball diamond. I think he's the most aware, prepared, at least as anybody else in the league in those things. And it's just another kind of little thing, but big thing that he does, that doesn't necessarily show up in the box score. It didn't show up because they didn't score anymore, but after that, but it was still a good play that could have, and good teamwork, like you said, with Margot also. And it's just, these are things that, when you have a bad day, you just kind of are reminded of it. And, they're not all going to be bad days, and things like that are going to pay off at some point and get them a win.
I have to say, I was impressed by your guy, Jay Jackson, too. He looked fairly solid. I feel like this is a weird, premonition or vision that I'm having, that he's going to be we're going to go back a ways with this one, like the Carl Willis or Steve Bedrosian of this bullpen, where it's not the guy. It's not Rick Aguilera. It's not
maybe the Terry Leach. What about Terry Leach?
Right. Yeah. Just a cog in the bullpen who will throw some big innings, but won't ever threaten to close. Not because he's not a violent person or a persistent person, but just
he's better give me the ball in the ninth inning, Rocco.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think there is going to be an appreciation, like a fan club for him, for being just a stabilizing force in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning of these games.
He's a positive entity. He's,
yes.
I said this about a different, or somebody's got positively charged ions. That was Royce.
Of course it was.
And look what happened to Royce. But Jay Jackson is also kind of like that too. He's, it's not that he doesn't get down, but he's had some reason to get down in his life and his career, and he's doing the best. He's still doing the best he can, putting up a good example. That's another thing over 162 games over 6 months that is going to keep the team going in a positive direction, even if they have a clunker like this. Yeah,
we are going to have Paddack and Joe Ross tomorrow noon. What are your expectations for Paddack? Because the specter of coming back, and I know he pitched in the big leagues last year for a little bit, but he, like I said, hasn't made a start in almost 700 days.
Yeah.
What are they going to expect out of him? They're doing this multi-inning bullpen thing, which is definitely a change of pace, which I think I actually kind of like it. You let guys get kind of in a rhythm, and also too, you use fewer relievers, so it gives you more options on a given day.
I don't know. Sometimes one of the downsides of the modern game, I think, can be where, you go one inning or less sometimes with guys. You never know who doesn't have it that day. If a guy happens to be pitching well, and we're not talking about bad matchups or poor leverage situations, maybe keep him in there for another inning. It's not the end of the world to do it like that. Teams kind of get out of that habit though. And so we'll see if the Twins are able to maintain something like that. As far as Paddack, he can't hear me, so I have pretty decent expectations. I think he's a guy who, when he can channel his emotions and he gets emotional, he makes that work for him, and it's going to be a big game for him because, like you said, it's been so long, basically 2 years since since he was out there on the mound in a start, and it's after a couple of down games, the starting staff needs a win. All kinds of motivations are pointing for Paddack to have a solid game. I'm thinking, 5 innings, 1 run, and we'll see if the offense can help him out a little bit.
I'll go so far as to say 6 strikeouts too. I think he's going to have
the
stuff popping. Let's take a quick second and talk about our friends at Game Time, and then I'll have you set up the Derek Falvey video that you have, and we got a couple other things before we get out of here. But again, first, a word from Game Time. Game Time is your source for tickets, single game tickets. If you are having a tough go of it, trying to find somewhere to sit, get some tickets. I was trying to find Harlem Globetrotters tickets recently.
Oh, wow.
Take my daughter. Yeah, and the schedule didn't work out, but we were on the Game Time app, refreshing nonstop, just looking to see what our best options were going to be. And we just didn't pull the trigger, but it was a perfect experience, even for just window shopping. So if you go through the app, you can talk, you can take a look at, baseball games, NBA. The Wolves just capped a win here over the Rockets. There's hockey games, there's concerts, comedy shows, anything you need tickets for. Game Time has you covered. You can get last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, all that fun stuff. You can see the view from your seat. You can set it up so that you can get your price up front. None of that bait and switch on the back end with fees, and lowest price guarantee. I mean, it's literally, you get the lowest price, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Last minute, you can get tickets up to the beginning of the event and even an hour into the event. Zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time chooses the seats. All-in pricing, again, shows you everything up front. And your seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. For a limited time, all users get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Game Time app with the code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH, FIRSTPITCH, no space, for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dave, we're coming down the home stretch here, and you have a Derek Falvey video to share with us. Help us understand what you're going to show us here.
Well, it is in English, so you'll be able to understand it just fine.
True.
No, but I'm sorry. That was a smart alecky thing for me to say. No, preseason stuff. We talk. I asked him some questions about roster construction and possible deadline issues and how they courted some pitchers to, how Duarte made the roster, and how talk more about relief pitching than we did starting. I kind of, now going back on it, wish I had asked him a few more questions about the starting rotation with the last couple games. That would have been topical, Dave, but it's all right. It's about 5 minutes long, and he's a very optimistic guy, and I think the fans will like what he has to say. Although on Twitter, somebody could go out there spitting up rainbows and people would knock it down. So, whatever.
Well, without further ado, here is that beautiful bean footage.
I look at our team, I think about the way we ended last year. It always leaves that bad taste in your mouth the day you lose and you finish. But, taking a team like Houston has been maybe the best team in the American League for the last decade to the ropes, and ultimately to play the way we did, our guys knew that they could play in those moments, in that environment. So that's nothing about the division, that's nothing about the league, that's knowing, can you play playoff baseball and win games? And certainly our guys now have had that taste and experience. But you get no credit for last year, right? You start 0-0 today, everyone does. I look at our roster as a team that's a little bit more experienced from a year ago. A lot of these young kids had that time and that experience now. They're hunting that moment again and that opportunity to get over that bridge this next time. And I really feel like these guys are ready for it.
You guys paid a lot of attention to building on the depth in the bullpen that you already did in the offseason, and aren't you glad you did that?
Yeah, no doubt. Everyone always says, oh, you feel like you have depth and you have a little bit more pitching or a little bit. I don't believe in that. I don't think there's a thing to have too much depth in that area. And, yeah, we've been dinged up here. Obviously, Duran being down to start the year, and Thielbar and Topa, too, at the end of here. But we feel like there's a group. Griffin Jackson really well in spring training. Jay Jackson, guys like that have come in and pitched in meaningful innings. You have Brock Stewart, who really threw the ball well for us last year. So hopefully those guys can step into those roles, and then some of the younger guys step into some of those bridge roles, too.
You've got to feel confident that no matter who you've got in that bullpen, 10 deep, 15 deep, if need be, you guys have a lot of resources and places to go in case you need them.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we look at the group, when we think about last year, when we started the year, a guy like Brock, and I'm mentioning him again, he wasn't part of the group to start the season, but ultimately became a huge part through the course of the year. Bullpens, maybe more than any other position on the field, are more in flux through the course of the year with changes. Guys can make a quick adjustment with one pitch and find a way to get toward the back end. That was Griffin Jax a year ago. So we need Cody Funderburk and other young guys like Cole Sands and others to find that too and find a way to help us bridge those games.
Were you holding your breath when you had to do some roster maneuvering with Duarte and letting him be exposed like that and getting it back?
Yeah, definitely. Every time you get to the end of an off season, you claim some guys, you try and figure out how to make the roster work. We liked Duarte a lot. Ultimately ran him through waivers, got him through, but he had a tremendous camp for us. I mean, one of the things he's always had is really good stuff, but throwing it over the plate, getting the strikes that he needed, he really made that adjustment this spring with a guy that pitched probably as well as anybody in camp. So the chance for him to come back on the roster is just a cool moment for him to be a part of the group.
It wasn't talking about him throwing strikes. It's a new season, so we'll see what happens. But was he showing you something in spring training that's going to stick?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that Pete Mackey and Colby Suggs, our pitching coach and bullpen coach, spent a lot of time on the front end showing him how good his pitches were when they were in the zone. Talking about historically when he threw the stuff that was already good enough in the strike zone, it made an impact. And so they made some adjustments to where his sights were set, where he was trying to throw to a catcher. Ultimately, sometimes that small tweak can make a real adjustment. Because once you have the pitches and the stuff already, he didn't have to work on throwing harder or throwing the ball with more break. He was working more on how to make sure he gets it over the plate more. He found a way to do that, and hopefully it will stick through the course of the season.
Jay Jackson said yesterday he was just excited to be finally on an opening day. It wasn't in Japan.
Yeah.
But he liked how you guys approached him in the offseason. You didn't make it seem like he was the secondary. It's like, some other teams might have been interested in me, but it was like, we're going to fill out some roster spots and get back to you, and you guys didn't approach it like that.
No, we approached Jay and said, listen, when he's been pitching the last few years in the big league, he's been a really effective pitcher. And certainly it took him a little longer to get to where he wanted to be in the big leagues than maybe some other guys on the team. But I think that's an experience and perspective that he's been through the adversity already. He's gone through the ups and downs. As you said, he's pitched over in Japan and had to come back. So we really approached him and saying, listen, we think there's a role for you here if we can intersect on the right contract terms. And I think he really felt good about it, and I know we feel good about it.
There have been some late free agent signings this year, maybe better deals for teams than people were expecting. The Twins weren't. It wasn't time. In July, closer to the deadline, might it be time for adding payroll when now maybe isn't the time?
Yeah, I think we cross those bridges and have those conversations with ownership every year. And certainly we're hopeful that come mid-July, when this thing starts to really crank up around deadline time, that we are in a position where we're thinking about adding, and we're thinking about how do we make this team even better. My hope is that a lot of it comes organically through our group, and guys stepping up from the minor leagues and guys that step up on our team to be a big part of it. You're always looking for round-out pieces at the deadline, and if we're in a position where we're winning, I'm confident we're going to be seeking ways to add to this club at the deadline.
No, it's hard not to be encouraged by that last little bit there, don't you think?
I thought so, but or I agree. But then again, I don't know. Has he said something like that before? I don't know if it's new or. I mean, it is encouraging. I guess we'll see what happens. I think I've said before, if the Twins play well enough, they're going to be in a position to add, not necessarily to win the Central, but to win something bigger.
Yeah, no, I think you're on point there. Let's close up with a few random notes here. White Sox beat the Braves. Garrett Crochet. I hope he can go for a while because the White Sox fans that I interact with deserve at least some good news. But honestly, if I set the over-under at 109.5 losses for the White Sox this year, are you taking the over or the under?
I thought you were going to say 109 innings for Garrett Crochet, and then you're
no, I don't want to be rude.
Jumping back. I mean, they tried to give it away a little bit. Kopech was I don't know if Kopech is cut out for baseball or ninth innings in particular, but it was kind of a roller coaster there at the end. The Braves are very good. Yeah, the White Sox are not. But they're not going to go undefeated. They're at least 1-161.
Yeah, right. Aaron Hicks homered off Jesus Luzardo today. The Marlins are 0-6. Our deepest condolences to Locked On Marlins host Peter Pratt. But it was just weird. I was a big Aaron Hicks guy a decade ago, and I'm a big Jesus Luzardo guy now. So it's kind of like that SpongeBob, kind of everything spinning on you meme. But the Marlins do stink right now. Brewstar Gratterall to the 60-day IL. Twins fans love keeping up with former Twins. Right shoulder inflammation, not a new injury, just he's not going to be ready to go until mid-May. Dallas Keuchel has signed with the Mariners on a minor league deal, and Sandy Leon on a minor league deal with the Braves. Any of those really tickling your fancy?
Yeah, Keuchel didn't pitch like the worst pitcher in the league last year with the Twins.
It's like a Bartolo Colon with the Twins situation.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah, that's always a fun analogy when we invoke Cologne. But keep going as long as you can, dude. And I'm talking to Keuchel, not anybody, not you, dude.
Well, the Twins legend, Sandy Leon, lining up with the Braves. Sean Murphy dealing with an injury, so they got some catcher depth as well. Big one. Must-win game coming for the Twins in the series finale against the Brewers. If you go on Twitter, that's a running joke that every game is a must-win game. But
I started with big one, and then you went to must-win.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? I self-edit as I go.
Right. I need to do better self-editing on my video transitions. I just was thinking about that watching Falvey, but I'm working on it.
I'm looking forward to Paddack. It reminds me of my score sheet team like 10 years ago where my name was Panic at the Cisco, and it was Joe Panic and Andrew Cisco, the big lefty reliever from the Royals.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
Or maybe I had Chance Cisco. I can't remember, but either way.
No, Andrew's right, I think.
Well, I had Chance Cisco, too, I think, their catcher for the predecessor to Adley Rutschman. But anyway. A
lot of people are predecessors to Adley Rutschman.
Well, after Matt Wieters, before Adley Rutschman. Hey, this has been Locked On Twins. This is a little bit more of a smooth transition to the finale than the most recent episode. But hey, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see ya, or we'll see ya tomorrow night.